Hello and welcome to Africa Media Matters, featuring interviews and comment about media issues across the African continent. I'm Alex Jakana. Incidents of gender-based violence in Southern Africa go largely unreported by the region's media, and when they are, their treatment leaves a lot to be desired. That's the conclusion of a new survey by the equality NGO Gender Links. Sikhonzile Ndlovu from the campaign group's Gender and Media program set out the key findings of the research.
When you look at the proportion of gender-based violence compared to the total number of stories, you realize gender-based violence stories make up just 4% of the total. It's not a true reflection of the extent of the problem. And then when you move on to look at the people that are talking in these stories that we see in the media, there are a lot of stories that are blaming the victim. The stories are not very analytical. And then when you look at whether it's men or women that are speaking in these stories, you realize that the majority of causes are men, yet the majority of victims of gender-based violence are women.
What is the problem with the approach that news editors and journalists take?
The problem with the approach is that most of the coverage is event-based. The media, they wait for things to happen and then they cover the stories from that angle. You don't get that many stories where the media goes out to do critical reporting, and some of the stories are based on court reports. The journalists go to the court. That's where they get their stories from.
What are the consequences of this sort of coverage, would you say?
The consequences of this coverage is that it denies the audiences, the consumers, it denies them of the opportunity to get in-depth coverage and a full understanding of the extent of the problem.
What are your concerns about this?
The media have a role to go out there and look for the stories. And when I say stories, I'm not talking about events that have happened, but looking at these problems in detail with the people that are being affected and trying to come up with solutions.
Why don't editors and journalists take a more responsible approach to reporting gender-based violence?
The problem is that we need concerted effort from those that are working in the field to try and sensitize the editors and the people in the media. We need to change mindsets because the media that we have at the moment, they are business entities and it's all about the bottom line. And gender-based violence is not the kind of stories that are likely to sell the newspapers. So we need to conscientize people in the media and not only work with the journalists, but we need to work with the decision makers to make them understand why this problem needs to be discussed in public fora.
Is there anything that women's groups and rights activists can do to try and change newsroom attitudes?
The women's rights groups and non-governmental organizations should make sure that they are visible throughout the year. They are campaigning, but as soon as the campaign is over, there is nothing said about gender-based violence. So we need continuous efforts throughout the year, and we need more capacity building, workshops and seminars for the media.
What is the danger if this problem is not tackled?
It means that women who are the majority of the victims won't be able to realize their full potential.
That was Sikhonzile Ndlovu talking to us from Johannesburg. IWPR, giving voice, driving change.